Greetings, magnificent souls, to the Lily Bewley podcast, where we have open and honest discussions about ourselves. This is your host, Lily Bewley, and I'm honored to have conversations here with thought leaders, visionaries, healers, and even solo conversations with myself about things I am currently reflecting on. This is a place where we break down, break away, and break through our emotional trauma, allowing ourselves to attract health, build wealth, and live a peaceful life. We are tired of being sick and tired. We are tired, but we are not giving up. We know that there is something magnificent inside of us. And because we are fighting daily, hourly, and by the minute, fighting ourselves, our kids, our spouses, we have to do things differently. We have to break the cycle. We don't have a million chances. We have to be happy now. We have to find a way. So how do we do that? How is that possible? If you look around at what society is telling you, they tell you that what we're doing is impossible. Yet it's happening every single day. And it's happening through the practice and the love that we call awakening the magnificent soul. We are all magnificent souls, and these are our stories of healing. Today in episode 84, I welcome Elizabeth Kipp to the show to chat about the way through chronic pain and also the power that we hold of inherent healing. Don't forget to let me know your thoughts about this episode or anything you'd like me to cover on future podcasts at epiphanyvault.com. Remember, it is a safe place, and I would welcome the discussion. And also a request, if you are enjoying the show, please rate and share and leave a review so that we can get the word out to more and more people who want to heal. And now on to the show. My guest today, Elizabeth Kipp, is a chronic pain specialist. She's a yoga-informed addiction recovery coach. She's an ancestral clearing practitioner, a yoga and meditation teacher, and international best-selling author of The Way Through Chronic Pain, Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power. She focuses on helping people realize the power of their inherent healing. Elizabeth healed from over 40 years of chronic pain, including anxiety, panic attacks, and 32 years of addiction to prescribed opiate and benzodiazepine medication. She now works to help others achieve the same healing that she experienced directly from the work that she teaches. And now on to the show with Elizabeth Kipp. All right, Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming on the show. And this is our second time at recording, and I'm so happy that we had some technical issues, and I'm happy that we're able to have this space and share this space together today.
Me too.
We made it. So I wanted to talk to you about chronic pain. I read your book, The Way Through Chronic Pain. It was super insightful for me because I can't really say, although you may beg to differ, and I'm welcoming a diagnosis or anything that you come up with me sharing my story, but I can't really say that I've had a whole lot of what I guess would normally be termed chronic pain in my past. I think I've had a lot of emotional pain, which has led me down, a very hard road. But I was wondering maybe if we can start off with maybe laying some foundation of what is chronic pain and why do you think it's important for us to talk about it and to look at it with ourselves?
Beautiful. Thank you for the question.
Yeah.
So we'll begin with the definition. Chronic pain is any pain that's felt 15 days out of 30 for 3 months or more. Any pain, physical, emotional, mental, financial, any kind of pain. It's all the same to the brain. All those things send the same signal to the brain. It hurts. The brain can't tell the difference between a broken heart and a broken bone. So that's our working definition. Why is it important? Two things. Chronic pain changes the brain and our perception of what's happening. We get chaos in the brain. We get brain fog. We can't think straight. We get a lot of negative mind, blaming others, blaming ourselves. I'm not enough. A lot of that stuff just gets really accentuated. And we have a hard time healing from that. And also, I'll give you some statistics. The National Institutes of Health estimates 25% of North America is in chronic pain. all throughout all ages, socioeconomic groups. It doesn't discriminate. Everyone gets hit. And the World Health Organization estimates a fifth of the world. So it's this silent epidemic. And my feeling is underneath that is trauma. It shows up as unresolved and chronic pain. And then addiction is the next step. It goes unresolved trauma or traumatic experience, unresolved, into chronic pain, into we develop addictive behaviors just to deal with it, because we have it's just easy. It's just the way that we try and keep ourself safe in the world.
Right.
It's got this horrible addiction. I'm an addiction recovery coach, so I can get on my soapbox about this.
Well, yeah, please get on your soapbox. This is welcome.
But it's about connection, and it's about we're carrying this unresolved trauma in the body, and we're trying to where we're not feeling safe, and we're trying to do something to feel safe again. That was my email. So very important understanding kind of what are the roots. People say the opposite of, I've heard people say, and I don't happen to agree, the opposite of addiction is abstinence, when in fact the opposite of addiction is connection. Yeah, because we get disconnected in the chronic pain experience. We get disconnected in the addiction experience. But here's the thing, in trauma, our response is the thing, and we get disconnected there.
Yeah.
So to heal, we need to do the healing work around the thing that started all of it, which was the unresolved stuff around the trauma.
Right. The root cause. Yeah, absolutely. I'm, I think I've shared with you before, is I started this podcast in 2018 talking about codependency, which is a response, an addictive response, if you want to kind of go that route, in my opinion. And I feel like that's a whole nother podcast series, so I'll just leave that at that. But the staggering quote that kind of hit me really hard is what you just said, is that 1 in 4 people suffer from chronic pain. And I think, what would you say, I feel like, so what I did with my emotional pain is I just kind of instinctively, because I had to survive and I had to live, I did what you just said, which is like, I really kind of disconnected from myself. And I also feel like I just felt numb, and maybe like turned off my feelings because it hurt too much to feel. And is that kind of what people typically do? Like, why does avoiding and numbing pain, for me, it worked for a while and then it didn't work, after a certain amount of time. Why is that, in your opinion?
So I'll adjust your wording just a little bit.
Yeah, please.
I don't believe we can turn off our feelings. We suppress them. We get really good at suppressing denial. Don't even know I'm a liar.
Right.
Oh, that didn't happen. I excelled at that. This thing would happen. Oh, that didn't happen. Next thing, that didn't happen. Next thing. We do that to survive. That's why we do it. We do it because it's the quick fix. And also, I just kind of feel like this is my experience, my personal experience, and then just I've sat in front of so many people that have told me their story. We don't have good role models about how to deal with our emotions.
Oh, yes.
So how are we supposed? We're very good at just right, because it keeps us safe, because nobody wants to hear Elizabeth cry, or they didn't want my joy either, but that's okay. They just, children should be seen and not heard. Right. So it's like, you asked me why, it's like we do that to keep ourselves safe in the culture that we're in. It works in the short run. It doesn't serve us in the long run. That's why you had to do healing around it.
Right. And that has definitely been true in my experience. It's so funny that you say that too, because sometimes, I like to say, I used to joke about this, not even kind of knowing the severity of like what I was like self-deprecating humor, but like I always used to say like, oh yeah, like I'm 30, but I feel like I'm 15 because I feel like emotionally I was like so immature. Yeah, it's just funny the way that you say that too, because that hit very deeply, is that we don't, for whatever reason, as a society, and in our family structure, probably, given examples of being emotionally mature. And then we put, like you're saying, you suppress them. And I love that reframe, because that's definitely was true for me too. Does the suppression of those emotions, does that lead, in your opinion, to chronic pain?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, an emotional pain can journal into a chronic pain, and that's why, because we're just,
Mm,
and we call this in chronic pain, in the chronic pain world, we call it allostatic load.
mm-hmm,
Allostatic load.
mm-hmm,
So it's how much stress is in the system, right? How much
right.
stress is in the system. Now, I think it's very interesting from an evolutionary point of view. I have a background in biology, and I've studied animal behavior and stuff, and systems, and stuff like that. And I find it really interesting that the human body can handle so much noise in the system and still make it to reproduce to the next generation. I find that
Mm,
amazing, right?
mhm,
Um, but the tricky thing is to not pass these not optimal behaviors onto our children. So we become
mm,
transitional characters by breaking the cycle, and not and not passing that stuff on to the next generation. So
mhm,
just because our parents said, the only way they could cope, my parents were coming out of the Second World War, and we were in a Cold War at the time, and they
mm,
lived through the Depression, and there was a lot that they just had to hold themselves together by their wits and move on. That's the frequency they operated at, because it's all they knew, their wits, right? We know we have these tools now, and so we can guide our children. We can break that pattern and guide our children to um, healthier responses than
yeah.
this suppression.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of what I found out too in my healing journey, is there's a better way. And I wouldn't, I don't even, I hit, a very low point where I kind of opened up to that possibility, because I was like, I don't know if it was God or spirit or kind of like my internal highest self, like knocking on my door, and was like, this isn't it. Like, this is not it. I didn't really know how I was going to get through that, but I did. And like you said, like, it's just, yeah, I just love having these conversations, because I feel like it helps people kind of realize that, um, there's something different out there than like what you're used to, even like in your family group or even in your friend group, or, things like that. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Hmm. There's also the level of consciousness that we move through. We've got different levels of consciousness that we can move through, and um, in my most of the time I was dealing with chronic pain. My level of consciousness is the universe is doing this to me.
Mm-hmm.
I get in Dr. Peter Prescott's, he wrote a book too called Conquer Chronic Pain: An Innovative Mind Body Approach.
Mm,
I teach this book. It's available on Amazon. It's amazing. It's researchery, and it's like this beautiful companion to my book,
yeah.
which is more like user's manual.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. I love that.
was very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I got into Dr. Peter's pain management group, and he says, "What are you doing to contribute to your pain?" And I was like, "What? I'm not doing anything. It's doing it to me." But I realized, he had a point. He took me from victimhood to empowerment just by that question, because
Right.
I suddenly realized I actually have some control over how bad this really is.
Mm,
My suffering is a result of something internal to me, right? So the second level of consciousness is the universe is doing it for me. Third level, the universe is coming through me.
mm,
So it's this beautiful co-creative process, and the universe is everywhere, the energy is everywhere. It's not personal. It's just the way it is. It's a very
Mm-hmm.
different, right? So um, our viewpoint, our perspective on our condition has a lot to do with kind of our healing ability to heal, our openness to healing.
Mm, that is so true. I love the way you put that. Oh, that felt good to me. Thank you. um, I was wondering, I'm introducing you to my audience here, and you do so many great things right now today. You do, I'm sure there's more, but ancestral clearing and healing, which I'd love to talk about. You work with addictions and chronic pain. I'm sure there's many more on that list as well. But I was wondering if you'd share how you kind of got here, because it seems like that if from what I read, you lived with chronic pain for decades, and this also led to, like you're saying, this process of addiction and then coming out of that. I was wondering if you kind of would mind sharing your story about how you came to be this beautiful healer that you are today.
Thank you. I had an accident when I was 14
Mm,
that hurt my back, and then the next year I had a really big psychological trauma, and coming up to that I had a lot of unresolved childhood trauma I didn't even know I had, because I was so
mhm.
denying the whole thing. Right, it's like, move on, next thing, right?
Yep.
um anyway, so I had that accident when I was 14, major, broke fifth lumbar, uh, front to back in two pieces, and the front part slipped forward and pulled the leg nerves with it. I got up and walked away from the accident. I had no idea that I was like that injured. I knew that I'd done something, but I
Mhm.
couldn't walk. So I was like, well, it's just going to hurt for a while. It did. It hurt for 2 weeks. And then it was
Wow.
just achy. It was just, this is a very interesting thing I've just said. Anybody that's got chronic pain, that has experience of chronic pain, will understand this. I just said something really important. I didn't even know I'd hurt myself that bad.
Mm,
I had a history of dealing with physical discomfort. I had irritable bowel as a kid, so which was this constant under. I was required to drink 3 glasses of milk a day, and nobody knew I couldn't digest the base protein of casein, and I had the stomach ache, all this gut pain all the time, and nobody knew what it was, so I just dealt with it. That's a frequency of chronic pain right there.
mm.
So
Started young.
yeah, and I was an athlete, and so my parents were athletes, and there's a big thing in the culture, and so no pain, no gain was the
Mm,
thing. So
mm.
I 14 break a vertebra in my back. I'm like, oh, well, that hurt. Get up and walk away. I mean, next thing. So I mean, I did hurt. I didn't get on a horse for 2 weeks, but I did after 2 weeks. I got back on, and that I can tell you that bone wasn't healed by then.
Mm.
Anyway, so the whole thing became unstable 14 years later, and I and the chiropractors have been helping me deal with it for about 7 years, um and then they said, well, some of our patients need surgery, and you're one of them. So that's when the pain medicine started. So 3 surgeries, 3 structural surgeries, and a corrective surgery. So 4 surgeries later, and 32 years of opiates and benzodiazepines later,
Mm.
I go into Dr. Peter Prescott's program, mostly because the doctors had no other plan. They're just like, this is, you have to take these drugs. This is the best we can do, because
Mhm.
they assumed I wouldn't heal. That's a really important. Their assumption was, you have to live with this for the rest of your life. The assumption was Elizabeth's not going to heal. They never asked the question, why isn't Elizabeth
Mm.
why is she not healing? They never asked that question. They just assumed I wouldn't. Really important to understand that when you're in a doctor's office. And I love them. They're great. I'm not dissing them. I'm just saying, understand their perspective and their limitation, right? So Dr. Peter really understood chronic pain. He understood how it affects the brain, and so I walked into his program, uh, and 52 with 40 years plus of chronic pain, walked out 52 days later, no pain.
Mm.
And he had a 94% success rate. So it was like his thing worked. It was great. I wish he was still with us, because he had a great program. He passed away a few years ago. But I
seems
keep
like
it.
you're carrying the torch.
Yeah, I certainly am. So now you can also, Dr. Joe Dispenza,
Mhm.
he's was also, he's kind of, it's the same vein. If anybody knows Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, amazing work. And then also Dr. Sarno, Dr. Sarno, who's not with us anymore either, understood this is his model as well. So there were a few doctors that really understood the holistic viewpoint on chronic pain. That was and I was so impressed. And also there was Ancestral Clearing was a piece of Dr. Peters' program. I was so impressed with that too.
Mhm.
John Newton of Health Beyond Belief was a wellness consultant in that program, and he was doing ancestral clearing, and it was phenomenal how
Mm.
much a lot of my pain just cleared on the spot. So Peter brought qigong as well. We had meditation. I was already a meditator. I just was better to. I was so clean of. I was clean of all my medications, so my meditation was much stronger.
Mm.
So here's how I got on this path. I remember staying in hospital. At first it was if I ever get better, then it was when I get better, I'm gonna give back, because so many people supported me. I'm gonna give back to the people that need it, because I was helped so much by so many. Right, I was like, I've got this debt, I've got to give back. So that was number one. Number two was when I was in treatment, and I was in Dr. Peters' program. 20 of us on campus went to Dr. Peters' pain management. Everybody else was straight relapse school, and I didn't get to go to relapse school because I was in pain track. So I said to my counselor, well, I'm not getting anything on relapse. I need to get educated on that. And she said, here are the statistics. There's an 80% relapse rate in the first year. And this is what went in my mind when I heard that. I'm doomed because of the odds. And the second was, what's wrong with this model? Because I started as a social scientist, and I was like, there's something wrong with this model. This
doesn't feel quite right to me.
Something wrong here. And so, and I don't say that lightly. And so in that moment, I said, when I get out of here, actually, if I get out of here, because there was a question at the time, if I get out of here, when I get out of here, I'll do whatever I can to help move the needle on the relapse. So that's why I'm here. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I work with people in recovery. I'm really focused on the chronic pain aspect of it, and I teach trauma-informed yoga as well. So I'm really speaking to the underbelly of what gets us into addiction in the first place.
Yeah. I love that too, because you are, I think it's kind of a revolution that's coming, but I love that because you're also touching on like the root of the issue, which, from my opinion, like a lot of the addiction stuff out there really doesn't. It's about what you're saying, like abstinence, abstinence, abstinence. But that is, I had a problem with food for a long time. And that is like, that's maybe the worst thing that you can offer someone, because like I made a lot of meaning about myself because I wasn't able to stick to a program, or I wasn't able to do, I kept repeating these behaviors. But I just love that you're just kind of, it's like you're bringing so many different levels into what you're doing. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I lead a food addiction meeting twice a week on the Recovery 2.0 platform. And we work with that. But it's interesting because my experience around addiction, if you look at addiction, we in R2O, we look at six main addictions: drugs, alcohol, food, relationship, money, technology.
Wow.
And 4 aggravations. Tommy Rosen says 4. I had this one: procrastination, self-doubt, negative thinking, and resentment. I had a 5th one: judgment. So these are all things that they're all addictive frequencies we get into, right? food is a big piece, but here's the thing. If we don't get to the underbelly of what is the food, how is the food addiction or any other addiction serving you? Because it is. If you're
Yeah.
continuing to use it, it's serving you in some way. And then look at that and say, well, how is that related to trauma, unresolved trauma in your past? And
Right.
then work with that. How are you ever going to heal? That's why we have a big relapse rate, I feel.
Oh yeah.
Because we're not getting to
Totally.
the root, where we're having difficulty getting to the root. And I
Yeah.
love 12-step. I have a beautiful group here that I work with, and they're amazing here on Narcotics Anonymous local. And I work with Recovery 2.0, and I love that. And my program is holistic, and it deals with the trauma on the physical level through the yoga that I do, the yoga and meditation. And then it also, I work with a therapist. So when I need to, and I work with acupuncture. I have this holistic and diet. My diet is careful, and I still have tendencies where I'll eat a meal. My big meal tends to be at lunch, and I'll eat a meal. And just the other day it happened again. So I totally relate to you. I was eating. I felt full in my stomach, and my brain was going, "Where's the food? You haven't finished. You need words more. And I'm like, hold up, I'm full. What's that?" And I knew I just slipped into the frequency of addiction again. Something went off my brain. I don't know what it was. I wasn't aware of what set that off at the moment, but at least I knew it was happening, and I knew to breathe, and it was gone in about 10-15 minutes.
Yeah.
But I
Same.
had to
That
sit with
happened to me last night too. I went to dinner, I call it storm mode. It's,
it.
like, so yeah. Oh gosh, that's so powerful. I just, like the message that I just keep receiving is like, there's a better way. There's a better way. There's a better way. Because again, like when I was in the thick of it, I had no idea. Like I didn't know that there was, yeah. So I just love these types of conversations. So many different ways that we can go. Something that really stood out to me in your book was something that you call the cycle of suffering. And again, this is me not like identifying with chronic pain, but then realizing that, a lot of my life has been circled around some kind of pain, emotional pain for me for the most part. But I was wondering, when you pointed out the cycle of suffering, I was like, oh gosh, like I felt very seen. And I feel as though my audience may as well. I was wondering if you feel okay, kind of maybe briefly going through that, or whatever you feel comfortable with.
Yes, I'd love to. I came up with this because I was doing it.
Yeah.
I was in early
I'm raising my
recovery.
hand right now.
Right. I was in early recovery, and I had an experience, and I was able to be aware, watch my behavior. And I've just been a meditator for a long time, and it enables you to watch your behavior, right? Even though you're doing it, you're watching.
Yeah.
And I saw this, and I was like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. That's a thing, that's a thing. I think this is what humans do, right?
Oh gosh, yes. And I love that. I love that too, because what I've learned with my healing is that I can, like, when I kind of see myself doing patterns and systems and I can think of it, it's just, I don't know, it's just very healing because it does something. I don't know, but yes, please continue.
Well, it's enlightening. We're all of a
Yes,
sudden, a light bulb goes off. We got an aha moment. Oh, look what I'm up to, right? That kind of thing. So it's got 5 elements, and I'll go through them, but I'll just name them first: disconnection, isolation, judgment, attachment, control, and resentment. This is how it works. So, and I'll come from a point of view of pain, remembering that it could be emotional, physical, it doesn't really matter. It's all the same to the brain. We have a chronic pain experience, meaning we're having this intense experience, and it's lasting, right? It's 15 days out of 30 for 3 months or more. So it's on for, even grief can be considered a chronic pain event, right? So we feel disconnected in that experience because we can't share it with somebody else. Now we can complain to others about it, but we can't actually share it with others. It's our personal thing. And we also get disconnected from who we were before we had all this pain. Like we're not who we were, we're this thing now, right? So
Right.
disconnection. And in our disconnection, we experience being isolated because we
Yes.
are. And then we judge our experience as bad. I don't want to be here. This is horrible. Let me out of here, go away. I want to get rid of this. I did it for years, but I'm not the only one. Then we get attached to the suffering, right? To the relationship. It's this I'm in relationship with this chronic pain. I don't want it. And because I don't want it, we're in relationship with it. We're attached. It's like the Chinese finger puzzle.
Mm.
The more you try and get out of it, the more it tightens, right? It's like that. It's like that. So we get attached. Then we try and control the situation. We're attached in relationship, but then we try and control the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't work because pain's always going to win when we're doing that. And then we get a resentment. It makes us really angry. We get a resentment and we get so mad, the whole thing starts over again. More disconnection, more isolation, judging even worse, bigger attachment, more control, more angry, and the cycle it's just a spiral. Yeah. Now you can go the other way, but I'm just, so you can do it, you can positively spin out of that, but which is what the book's about pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But just understanding the dynamic of that cycle is really healing. Just,
Yeah.
that's what I'm up to. Look at that. I'm doing that,
Yeah. And that brings to mind for me, like what I'm really, really personally, I mean, I'm more than happy to talk about this, but what I'm really mad about in like the self-help and self-development space right now is things like we have to fight, we have to be hard and we have to like fight it. And, but that's just a personal thing for me. But that's what came up when you were talking about this cycle of suffering is that, and this is what I've learned in healing myself and what I teach with my clients as well, is that the more that we fight it, the worse it's going to be. And so like this, like, it's kind of very all encompassing with what you've been talking about today but it just came up for me is I'm just tired of that rhetoric of, oh, you got to fight your pain, or you got to like,
it's incorrect.
Yeah, it absolutely is incorrect.
I'll give you a great example of how I learned that in this. I told you I was an athlete. So I have this,
Same. Yeah.
I have this, hardcore, go for it kind of attitude. I always get up when I fall down kind of thing. I was working with John Newton, by the way, one time. This is a Help Beyond Belief guy that does the Ancestral Clearing. And he's a martial art. He has a martial arts in his background. So he and I knew that about him. And I'm talking to him about my anxiety and so I'm like, just my recovery. I was still wound up like a top. And he said, and he said, surrender. And I looked at him and I said, surrender? I never surrendered to anything in my life. He said, I said, when I fall down, I get back up. This is what he said, stay down.
Oh,
you hear the silence? I hesitated. I'm like, what is this guy, crazy? But because it was John, and I knew he had this martial arts background, and I knew a little bit about kung fu, qigong and stuff, and tai chi. I knew a little bit. I knew enough to know, Elizabeth, you got something to learn here. Maybe he's onto something, right? So he said, what if you just let God take all of it? Now that's kind of religious for those things, but you could just say, why don't you just allow yourself to release control, release your control over all of it? And I was like, again, part of me was like, what is this guy, crazy? But the other part of me was like, give it a try. So for about 10 seconds, I just stopped trying to control this anxiety and it just dissipated. It just disappeared. Boom, gone. And I was like, oh, that's what they're talking about, surrender. That's what that means. In the
Mm-hmm.
recovery world, that's what surrender truly means. You can't come to me with something like surrender or let it go without some kind of grounded action step, because it's just going to land as dismissive to me. It's not going to land as instructive. It's going to land as dismissive, and I don't do well. How I'm going to learn from that, right?
Yes. And it seems, yeah, I think the let go thing is another thing for me. But yeah, it just seems like, I don't know, for me, it like just seems so impersonal, and it just doesn't seem, I don't even know. I don't have words really to describe it, but it doesn't seem, it's like, it seems isolating to me, which is,
That's
like,
the opposite of
yeah,
what we're going for. Yeah.
yeah, which is
Yeah.
connection, and basically all the opposite words that you just mentioned in this cycle of suffering.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Oh, I love that so much.
So in our
Um,
in our in our relationship with pain, or the ideal is to notice that um, we're having an intense sensation experience, and leave it at that. So as long as I'm fighting with it, imagine, and I've used this before, imagine that the energy moving through, the universal energy moving through you it's the force of Niagara Falls. Just
mm,
universal energy coming through you, right? We have a pain experience, we judge it. That's like putting a pipe around Niagara Falls. See the resistance, right? As soon as we stop judging our experience and just go, well, this is really intense, and just allowing it to be there, the pipe disappears and it's just energy.
yeah,
Pain part goes away. It's just a lot of energy. The pain, the stress around the sensation actually goes away. I've done it with when I broke my wrist. I didn't have any medication on board. I broke this arm in 7 places, blew out the wrist and the bottom of the hand. It was in a cast for a while and really hurt.
wow.
No
Hmm.
medication. And that's how I did it. I just stopped judging the pain. It was a big meditation. It was a big
Yeah,
meditation, but it's doable, right?
it is doable. And for those, I'm sure you would agree with this. And I think you just mentioned this, is that for me, it was a practice of just like you said, like doing it for 10 seconds. And then, and as it's like almost this, like, for me, it's like this wave of like self-kindness and self-compassion and self-love. Now that I'm thinking about that, I have been practicing that kind of not even consciously, I guess more unconsciously, because the more that I heal, the more I was able to open up to like self, all of these like loving things that I could do for myself. But I've done that with like my menstrual pain. It's just like sit there and sit in it and like not judge it. And sometimes I like imagine kind of what's going on inside of my body, and just like, and sooner or later it does, like, it takes a while, like an hour or so, um and sooner or later my pain, it just dissipates.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Yep. Well done. That's it's a testament to the work you've done to
Mm,
take the judgment off it and just allow to just be curious. That's huge. That's amazing. And
thank you.
what a beautiful role model you are for others. Yeah. I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad you're a coach in this space.
Thank
We
you.
need an army.
We really do. And I think it's coming. I have a good feeling that it's coming. So yeah. And it's like, yeah. And I think, well, we can go another different path is that, but like women, I think, there's so much judgment around our period and some like, things that we're supposed to hate, like we're supposed to hate our period and all that stuff. But yeah, that's like another avenue, but yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, judging our
Yeah.
experience is a
Yeah.
big part of what locks it in. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see. What I'm really curious about, I don't know if you kind of want to stick, I'm kind of leave this up to you, but if there's anything about the chronic pain stuff that we haven't covered that you think is important, but I'm also really curious about what you do with ancestral healing.
Oh,
I don't know what that is, and I'm just really curious about that, but I want to kind of leave it to you as far as what direction to go to right now and what you're feeling intuitively.
I'd love to talk about that. It was a big part of my healing from chronic pain, and I was so I was so excited about it. My science hat was on when I first experienced it. I was like, and I had this big experience where I just, a lot of my pain just cleared on the spot. I was like, what is
Wow.
this? is it measurable, and is it reproducible, and does he teach it? It's like all that stuff went through my head in about 5 seconds.
Yes, give it all to me now.
And it turns out the answer to all of those is yes. So I was like, this is amazing. So I went and learned how to do it. And as soon as I could get to a training after treatment, I went right into the first training. And I've been doing this work everywhere on the planet, somewhere, everywhere, for 7.5 years. Yeah. Wow. And I do group stuff. I do it live when we're not in COVID. I do it live in groups. And I do them online in groups, and I do it private, one-to-one, and all that kind of stuff. So what is it? So it's based on, and there's a premise around this, it's based on the understanding that we come into this life with the gifts and the burdens of our ancestors, and that happens through imprints on the DNA. Mm-hmm. Now, epigenetics is a spin-off from genetics, which addresses the switches on the outside of the genes that can be turned on or off depending on the environment. Ancestral clearing works on that level. So sages, I think, because we see this so much in the practice, say you have in your family, and you kind of picked up that frequency, of warriors in the family. You've got, women that worry all the time, and men have this too, but women really carry it. Mm-hmm. And so, there's this kind of underlying anxiety that's in the family, that the women are just always worried, fussing about something. That's something we can actually address in ancestral clearing. We go to the root and into the ancestry around, and I'll give you an example of how we work that process.
Wow. Okay.
But and I'll tell you what's interesting. The most recent study I saw around this whole topic was not with humans, but with rats. So it's not just, it's mammals. It's not just humans, right? This guy runs a rat lab, and that's what he does. And, for people that do research, and he raised these baby rats, in the lab, and they're all playing in the community rat room one day, and he takes a cat hair and puts it right down in the middle of the room, and they all scatter. Boom. Right. They've never met a cat.
Right.
So how does that work? Right.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. So information from the past generations get carried into this generation. Mm-hmm. Information. So it's all useful information, or it wouldn't get carried, and we get lost, and things do, mutations and things like that. Information does get lost in systems, but the stuff that we carry, stuff that's useful information, depending on what we run into in the environment. Mm-hmm. A lot of people have, I came in with a hellacious phobia of spiders. It's something I've worked on throughout my life, but I don't have one with snakes. And I got clients that are freaked out about snakes and really don't care about spiders, or maybe don't like both, but it's already in it's imprinted. Danger. It's imprinted. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we also come in with trauma from unresolved trauma from war, and from domestic abuse, and from things like slavery and so forth. So I'm sitting in Lawrence, Kansas, the home to the oldest and largest Indigenous American university. And so there's plenty of, and from time to time, I have the honor of working with them. I work with a lot of people that have a mixed, in this Kansas City area, there's this mix of Indigenous and Caucasian, European. Mm-hmm. I work with a lot of those, and they all carry a very similar burden. Okay. Most of it's around not being able to access joy. Now, if you had the kind of extermination background that the Indigenous Americans have in your family, you'd have a little trouble accessing joy too.
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
So we address that stuff. Yeah, that's what we do. Yeah, that's
so interesting. Yeah.
So I can give you guys an experience of it just in about maybe 2 minutes. I can give you a 2-minute experience of it.
I'm open.
Like that?
Yeah.
So everyone that's listening, whether it's, on the replay, it's just as powerful on the replay as it is live here with Lily and me. Just put your attention on your body and just notice, relax the breath. And I want you to just kind of notice the body as you hear these words. We'll use the word creator as the thing that created the world, the universe, the all that is. God can have a spin to it, so we use the word creator. So because we're asking for creator's assistance here. So creator, for everyone listening to this podcast and all of their ancestors through all space, all time, dimension, realms, lifetimes, and incarnations, for all the hurts and wrongs ever done to them in thought, word, or action, any hurts and wrongs they did to themselves, and any hurts and wrongs they did to others, whether knowingly or unknowingly. Please help them all to forgive and release one another, forgive themselves, please and thank you. For any time anyone was abandoned, not supported, nurtured, or loved the way they needed, times they abandoned others, weren't able to support, nurture, and love others the way they needed, and times they were out of integrity with themselves. Please help them all to forgive one another and forgive themselves. Please and thank you. For all war, battle, Holocaust, injustice of any kind, please help them all to forgive and release one another, forgive themselves, find peace with one another, and find peace with themselves now and forever. Please and thank you. Now take a breath in and let it out, and just notice how that feels in the body. And that was about 45 seconds.
Yeah, for me, I felt a lot of like muscle release, especially in my shoulders.
There you go. Yeah,
sure.
We carry that stuff on our shoulders. Why don't we do a little bit around addiction, since that's maybe in our audience.
Sure.
For all the times we didn't get love, for all the times there was scarcity, for all the times the men came back from the hunt and didn't have, came back empty-handed, for any time the parents had to choose which child was going to eat and which one was going to go hungry, and for all the heartache around that, for any time anyone held a secret and felt out of integrity by doing so, for all addictive behaviors, including codependency, gambling, sex addiction, all of them. Please help them all to forgive one another, forgive themselves, for all mental illness, for all the times anyone experienced any kind of trauma and was unable to resolve it. Everything that led up to it in the lineage, and everything that emanated down into the lineage because of it. Please help them all to forgive one another and forgive themselves. Help them all release one another and release themselves. Find peace with one another and find peace with themselves, please and thank you. There you go.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I think I've had my therapy for today now. Thank you.
Yeah. You can see why I like it. It's just like, it's wow. Really the light, we release stuff. I love, 50-minute session is pretty amazing because we zero right in onto we've got 5 techniques we use. I just used one. We have 5 techniques to the process, and we can really get to the root of what's coming up for you in this moment around your lineage. So
yeah. And what I love about that is it's not like, for me, my experience with what you just took us through is that it's not cognitive, like it's not in our mind. That's
in the body.
Yeah,
it's interesting. We were able to kind of get past the mind with this work, as if you can just put your attention on the sensation in the body as the words do their, it's kind of like a word medicine thing. And it's a very interesting process. Now we do need people to be able to be present, and some people who have had trauma are not able to be present. So
Right.
they still get help. That would be like the 0.1% of the people that I work with aren't able to be present. They still get help, but they don't get as much. They don't their needle doesn't come down as far
Right.
because
Yeah.
we need you to be present, so that you can just, kind of allow. And if we're so guarded that we can't even be present, that's a different story. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. So true. Well, I just loved our conversation today, and now I feel very relaxed, and now I feel like, oh, you can probably hear it in my voice after that beautiful session. So I appreciate that. Um, your book is out right now, The Way Through Chronic Pain. I know that you have a collaborative project that's coming out here pretty soon, correct?
I do. It's the second book in this series, The Ancestors Within. This is
Oh,
the
cool.
first one. The second one will have a red cover, and it's called The Ancestors Within: Discover and Connect with Your Ancient Origins. And my chapter is, it's so cool. It's a book. It's going to be a 4-book series, and Amy Gillespie, who spearheaded this thing, has found 25. Hopefully it'll be 100 by the time we're done. 25 people in the ancestral healing arts to write
Wow.
a story of what they do. And so each book, now I'm probably being all 4. So some of us will be in all 4, but there's a lot of mix and match and new people. So it's very interesting. Everybody's got a different little beautiful tool that they bring around dealing with the ancestors. My chapter in this one, so the first book, my chapter was on ancestral clearing. This one is on empathy and ancestors, cultivating empathic skills to connect and work with your ancestors. So it's kind of like best practices for you to connect and work with the ancestors, but not take their energy on. Because
Yes.
people say that. I mean, people complain about that. So I'm like, yeah, that's not a thing. Let's just approach it from this perspective, and you'll be good. Yeah, so
Totally. Yeah. Great.
yeah.
Well, I look forward to diving into that. Just love this conversation today too. Where can people find you? Where do you do your most public interaction? Or I know that if they're interested in looking to see all the projects that you're working on right now, where can people find you?
Thank you. You can find me at Elizabeth-Kipp.com. You got to put the hyphen in there because ElizabethKipp.com is a photographer and a web designer, and that's not me. She's
Okay.
amazing, but it's not what I do. So
Okay.
Elizabeth-Kipp.com. You can find out all that stuff. You can email me at Elizabeth@Elizabeth-Kipp.com, and you can find me on social media all over the place. So.
Okay, cool. I'll link all of that to make it easy for the listeners. And I really appreciate you for this time and coming on the show today.
Well, gosh, thanks so much, Lily. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and share with you, have a conversation with you, and share what I do with your audience. I really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
that's my pleasure. Thank you.